Hello everyone, Mrhappy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mrhappy, aka Mrhappy Monday, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Sorry for the lack of videos over this last weekend. I had kind of a long weekend, so wasn't feeling too well yesterday. The day before, I was just way too busy to get anything out. I did get some recording done for the coming week, and before I get into the Q&A, I want to talk about that real quick. So today is Monday, obviously, and I am recording this on Monday, believe it or not. So Tuesday, tomorrow, Savage comes out, and my schedule for the week is pretty much going to be completely shot, especially when it comes to streaming. I'm going to be in there pretty much most of the day, not streaming for the entirety of at least a week. And for that reason, I just need to quickly say, I've recorded some videos ahead of time. I've recorded some Healer Happy videos, specifically some of the continuations of the Let's Play. I've gone into the expansion zones with that character now. And I'm also preparing to have a couple more videos ready, maybe about 6, hopefully a video a day is what I'm hoping to have prepared by the time that, you know, tomorrow Savage starts. So that way I'll have something to post every day. Apologies ahead of time if I don't end up being able to get all that done, because I have to do some preparations before Savage as well. And then on top of that, for streaming schedule, if anything, it'll be a random hour out of the day that I am going to be available. It won't necessarily be the same hour. I'm going to aim for some time that's close to what my regular schedule had called for, but we'll see what actually ends up working out. So if you don't see me on my normal times, that is why. I apologize ahead of time. But don't worry, still have Mondays with Mrhappy. We have this isn't going anywhere, so let's get right into the weekly Q&A. First question, hey Mrhappy, Dune again, with a class question not about the new abilities, but the old ones. Along with the Heavensward release, a few older abilities were tweaked, such as Shoulder Tackle having its minimum range removed, allowing for monks able to use that as a second stun and DPS cooldown or a gap closer. How do you feel about these changes, and what other slight tweaks would you like to see? Slight tweaks isn't really the thing I'm thinking of. I mean, other than to maybe some of the new abilities, or maybe the revamped old abilities. I'm a fan of that specific change, the Shoulder Tackle change. The other changes seem to mostly just be like they needed to do it because of the new jobs introduced or the other new abilities introduced. The one thing I'm concerned about going forward is that they pretty much can't ever add any more skills unless they're willing to remove the old skills, or remove some of the old skills at the very least. Otherwise, we've already hit that point where there are just above too many abilities. Just above that. For every job, I feel like that's fair to say. It's even worse for certain jobs. They can't add more abilities going forward. It can't, because now we have PvP coming back into the fray, and people are going to have even more trouble because they need to get their PvP abilities on the bar now. I still haven't really planned that out, but it's going to be interesting because we've officially hit the point where we have too many abilities. They're going to have to remove old abilities at some point. Next question. Hey Mrhappy, as always, love your videos, keep up the good work, and here's some law for you as well. Wait, some law? I'm not running a dungeon right now. I don't just get law, I only get bonus. Anyway, I think your spoiler embargo has been lifted, so I wanted to ask these questions. So, I guess, spoilers. So, I'll remember, I promise. I'm just going to put it down on the thing right here so I don't forget. A lot of bosses and primals are former Final Fantasy summons, with some being common like Shiva, Ifrit, Bahamut, others being less common like Bismarck, Garuda. But the thing I wanted to ask is, what obscure summons would you like to see as bosses and primals next? I doubt anyone was expecting to see Knights of the Round make an appearance, and I have to say that it was both a cool and epic fight. What non-traditional summons would you like to see? Brynhildr from 13, Sildra from 5, Eden from 8, etc. I don't really know, like Anima from 10 is the only real obscure summon. I don't really think we need like a Yojimbo or something like that. I think we have enough, you know, sort of entities like that. Gilgamesh kind of counts to me in that case. Yeah, I'd say really, I mean, I expected to see Knights of the Round. They've been talking about it since October. I don't know, that I didn't expect it, I guess, to be manifested in the form of a summon. I kind of just thought it to be sort of an idea, and it was both of those things. And then also you say, do you remember before Heavensward how you thought the floating continent was going to be a Yatlan? And in the way you were right, we learned that the Ixal are actually a bioengineered race created by the Allagans, called Ixalians at that point, and they could fly. Do you think Square Enix will ever connect the dots in-game? Right now, the players know about the connections, but our character NPCs in the Ixal probably don't. Do you think in a future patch or something, those connections will be brought to life? They mentioned something along the lines of having a side quest, so I'd be kind of surprised if they didn't have that. That's actually quite interesting. I was looking for that in-game. And that's, I believe you find that out through the panels inside of the fractal continuum. So, yeah, I haven't ever had a run where I'm allowed to stop and read those things. So, if that's where you got that information, that's pretty cool, because that's what I was wondering, what was going on with the winged Ixal in there. So, well, I hope we have a future with the Ixal Beast Tribe quest then to sort of sort out the final history of the Ixal. But we'll see what ends up happening. I kept it on the desk the whole time. Alright, next question. Hello, Mr. Happy, first time poster. Esoteric bonus. This is my guy right here. This is him. I have had a hard time to finding reliable information on the classes I play besides watching the videos you put up. I've looked a lot of places on the internet, and the information that is usually up is really old or from an unreliable source. What is the best site or forum to look at if I want in-depth information? Things that include point allocation, cooldown rotation, stats, soft and hard caps about your class job. Well, first of all, I don't think there are any stats, soft or hard caps right now. I'm sure there are, but we're probably not reaching them. Cooldown rotations, that sounds like a more tank-oriented thing, because cooldown rotations outside of your openers, generally as they become available, matched up with certain abilities. Point allocation is usually pretty standard. I mean, whatever gives you the most damage, or in the case of healing. Healing and tanks are really the only jobs that have any sort of difference in point allocation. You know, Ninja, Bard, Machinist, all dex. Dragoon, Monk, all strength. Summoner and Black Mage, all int, and then Scholar and Summoner situation throws it off. Most healers go with full mind when it comes to their point allocation. Some of them throw points into piety, but you'd have to ask them the specifics of that. And then tanks either go full vit or Volvit. That's what I'm trying to say. Full vit, not Volvit. Full vit or full strength. Some of them 50-50. Really, you just gotta look on Reddit. Like, you just gotta look at the most recent posts on Reddit or the official forums. People have been posting a lot of new stuff. It's mostly the scalings on points that we're still waiting for every job to kind of have figured out. But that information should be available, and when it is, it'll either be available on, like, Ariala or on Reddit. Either of those things should work. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, hope you're having a good Monday. It is actually Monday. I'm a big fan of your awesome videos and I've been a long-time watcher, but this will be the first time banked esoteric bonus. Yes. Sorry if it's a long question, but it's bugged me for a while. Okay. I want to get your opinion on this idea that Bards and Machinists should have lower DPS because they are more support classes. However, they do really brings so much more utility in other classes to warrant the lower DPS. The MP and TP regen are useful, but at this point a lot of classes, healers, monks, dragons, ninja summoners, have skills that already help them with their own management. Classes at the top of the DPS charts, monks, dragons, ninja summoners, bring crazy amounts of utility. Dragon kick, vulnerability up, critical strike up, TP regen, enmity control, piercing and slashing debuffs, virus, eye for an eye. Moreover, when these classes use their utility, they are not punished for it. Whereas when Machinists and Bards use their utility, they are punished by losing DPS sources. I just don't see how Machinists and Bards bring any more utility than these top DPS classes that warrant an intentionally lower overall DPS, and then an additional DPS reduction when using their utility. What are your thoughts on this, and if you feel any changes should be warranted, you think Square Enix will make changes? Thank you. That was a pretty long question, but it was a pretty well-warranted question. So it's not just the fact that they bring as much utility as they do. I mean, you have to look at, you know, TP and MP is a pretty big thing when it comes to longevity of a fight. It's not so apparent when it comes to things like normal Alexander or an extreme primal. That's really utility that's at its peak when it's in the hardest of hardcore content, which will be Savage tomorrow. And then you have to look at you know, foes. Foes is pretty much your go-to song regardless to start. If you don't need the other two, foes, huge DPS increase for the group. You have to, it's quite a few things. They also have the silence, which, you know, you can't really count those, because almost every job is either like a silence or a stun or a bind or something like that. It's also because, and this is only an excuse against the melee, this is why melee intentionally have higher DPS than everything else, they have 100% uptime. If played correctly, they have 100% uptime on the boss. Now, even with the changes with Minuet, Gauss, Barrel, if you are going to not be attacking an enemy because you're moving too much, you turn those off and turn them back on when you can stand still again. That's the general usage for them. So that's another part of the reason. So they have 100% uptime. That's the first reason. They don't have, well, they didn't have cast time, so I can't say that anymore. They have cast times now. That used to be a reason why they had intentionally lower. That was another, because they had no cast times. So they needed to have lower overall DPS. Bard, of course, is the only thing I'm really talking about here. And then you had the utility. The utility isn't so good. I'd say Machinist might bring better utility. So they have a few things that come to mind. They have their physical damage reduction, they have their magical damage reduction, they have a knockback, they have a heavy, they have a stun, they have a TP regeneration, an MP regeneration. They have the ability to do damage from a pretty safe distance. I'd say that, and besides, when played correctly in real content, I have to say they're not as far behind as everyone makes them out to be. Yes, on a dummy, a Dragoon's going to rip everyone to shreds. On pretty much anything, on pretty much anything that doesn't attack back or cause anybody to deal with any mechanics, yes, they will do miles ahead, like at least 150 to 200 more DPS, if being played properly. But if you look at party compositions, you look at party content, you look at all of the job abilities being worked together, you will see not as big of a gap between a Bard and Machinist and a melee DPS. And that's, of course, assuming that the Bard and Machinist are playing their job properly. I know that I've seen Bards, I've seen Machinists do over 1,000 in the Alexander floors. And, you know, sure, the other jobs could pull maybe like 1075, 1100 in that area. Of course, in extreme cases, in cases where you're DPS racing and you're doing everything to maximize, you could pull close to 1200 on certain jobs as well. But well-played Bards are still being competitive, and they have the ability to stand at range and deal with mechanics in a safer fashion. It's going to be interesting seeing how it works into Savage. I feel that it's okay the way it is. I feel like they need to make sure they're keeping this scaling up, though. They can't let them get to the point they were when Minuet and Gauss Barrel weren't working very well. That was not a good place to be in. Right now, I feel is a good place for them to be in. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, first time posting, so bonus for you. Anyways, I hear a lot of my fellow Black Mages complaining about the new rotation because they have to bounce around to keep up Enochian. They especially find it hard in heavy AoE situations. I think, on the other hand, it's actually quite fun and interesting. What are your thoughts on it? I think it's too strict. I think that of all the jobs in the game that got new rotations, that got new abilities, Black Mage may have become the most difficult to stay consistent on the DPS charts. Because if you make one mistake, single mistake, Enochian's done. If you try to use Thunder, Enochian's done. If you try to use your Firestarter procs, which are supposed to be a DPS increase after a certain, which are there to increase your DPS, that's a DPS loss. And if they move for half a second, they have to move for half a second, guess what? They probably lost Enochian. All those things really make it a less desirable job to play. It's got less mobility than Summoner. It has comparable damage when they can stand still, but just not having that mobility sucks. You can't be like, oh, we have Skate. It's not what it's about. It's about Summoners can maintain their maximum point of power while moving, and Black Mages are just like, yeah, well, I have infinite resources. It's just that, goodbye, Enochian. And then they fall off. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating to see. I feel bad for them. I'm interested to see, though, how Summoners last in content where there aren't a lot of jumps again. Because I've seen plenty of Summoners do, you know, 3-minute videos, 4-minute parses. And it starts getting troublesome towards the end. I start looking at their MP pool and I'm like, uh-oh. I gotta see you in a 12-minute fight. Because I don't know, Manipulator, they seem to be doing okay. So maybe it's just something that seems fabricated in those 3-minute parses. You'll probably just omit certain things and it'll be fine. I think I'm glad they're doing some Enochian changes with Black Mage. Something to Thunder. They're also doing something with recasting it when Enochian still has a timer left. So I'm curious to see what the changes are. I think it's a little bit too strict and not that fun to play, really. Next question. Hi, Mr. Happy. Long time, first time asker. A long time fan, first time asker. 60 law. Not esoteric. It's okay, I forgive you. First, I want to thank you for all you've done for 14 fandom. No problem, man. I've used your guides for all the extreme problems and some of the coils. Thank you. For my question, I'm a Scholar main. I've noticed that sometimes through the Duty Finder when I'm paired with an Astrologian, they use Nocturnal Sect, despite the fact that they should really be using Diurnal when with a Scholar. Heck, they should be using Diurnal no matter who they're with. And I find these people really annoying because of how Nocturnal Aspect and Benefic Helios interact with Galvanize, unlike the two Scholar together, where the stronger heal shield takes effect, it is simply the one used last. So when I add load the main tank, it is replaced as soon as the Astrologian uses either of their aspected skills with a weaker shield. I've heard a lot of people complaining about this, and there are birds chirping on my air conditioner right now. Do you think this is a glitch, simply poorly programmed, or working as intended, and do you think they will rework it in a way? Well, okay, so I think they should. I don't know why the weaker shield is being prioritized. It's stupid. Second of all, using Nocturnal Sect is a bad idea. Period. Diurnal Sect regens do stack with White Mage regens. Just that 2 Astrologian Diurnal Sect regens do not stack with each other. So you could theoretically have Medica 2 regen, Aspected Helios, and Aspected Benefic with the regen effects all on the same targets, and they wouldn't be overwritten. That is why even if I have a White Mage, I just go into friggin' Diurnal. I just go into, is it Diurnal? Yeah, it's Diurnal, not Nocturnal. Nocturnal's the other one. I just go into Diurnal Sect, because it's easier. It's better in pretty much every way. Nocturnal Sect needs a buff. On top of needing that fix, that problem you just listed, it needs a buff too. Next question. Hey, Mr. Fabby. Is that like, fab? Like fabulous? Alright. I was like, he got money. I'm okay with this. Heart everything you do, and I dig this beard. Hope you won't shave it. This thing's got to go at some point, man. Anyway, I just returned to this game since 2.1. Got kicked out of a guild. Frontlines is kind of empty, and it's kind of a good thing, because I was wondering, should I just transfer to a high pop server and NA data center and get used to the lag and start making a new life there with a better market, more people, all kind of guilds? Or should I save $30 and stay on Phoenix till we get our own EU data center and play with lag-free connection with worse market and less people, and of course, French people? Note that I am a solo player, not that like I don't do anything with people, but I heavily rely on Party Finder to clear all contents. I don't join guilds and statics. Help me. Ooh, that's rough. Well, first of all, you got to get caught up. You got to get caught up with the most recent content, because no matter whether you have a guild or not, unless you're, you know, in the expansion, you're gonna have a hard time finding anyone to do anything. Even in the Party Finder, they're gonna want to do it undersized. They're not gonna want to bring someone who's level 50, unfortunately. I wouldn't say there's a worse market on Phoenix, less people, and I don't know what the French population is on the different European servers. Like, I don't know where the European, where the population of the different countries there are located within the different servers on the European servers. And you're a solo player? Well, for right now, first of all, no matter if you move to an NA server, you'll have lag. You'll have the same lag you had now because they're in the same location. It's a matter of when a few months roll around and they finally do roll out those European data centers. It's in a few months, so it's not too far away. By the end of the year, and they were aiming originally for patch 3.1 to have those ready. So this is a tough situation, and you rely on the Party Finder. Having a lot more Party Finder options available would be nice. I'd say your priority is to stay on Phoenix and get caught up with the game, because until you do that, moving servers isn't going to help you with much. So I'd say stick to Phoenix, get caught up, get to 60, see how it is then, and then worry about that issue later. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy. Question for week 49. A few more weeks until Mondays with Mr. Happy's first anniversary. I know. I'm a big fan of the Garlean character design. So you think Garlean-inspired armor weapons will come out soon, even if it doesn't make sense lore-wise unless Nero makes a comeback? Also, do you think Square Enix should make an NPC armor weapons obtainable, even if we can only get them at the Mog Station? Rabon Sword, Garlean Helmet. I mean, they do things that are only for vanity from the Mog Station, so I guess it falls in line. Those are items that, I mean, there are already items on the Mog Station that piss people off. So, I guess you could only piss them off more, right? I think that those items should maybe be obtainable in-game. Yeah, it's otherwise it's kind of strange to have those kind of super crazy things. Just like, hey Amaric, how'd you get that weapon? $5 on the Mog Station. It's like, yeah, I don't think that's how you got it. As for Garlean items, yeah, eventually. I mean, don't forget, we have Sid, too. Sid's got to know how to make that stuff. Actually, no, he's not an armorer. He's an engineer, so that doesn't make much sense. I don't even think Nero is an armorer. He was a rival engineer. Somebody else is making that armor for him, and as soon as we have somebody that knows how to make it, or we just find it in, like, a Garlean-themed raid, then, yeah, of course we'll have them. I don't think it'll be soon. I think that's something that may come along when we start inching towards taking back Alamigo, and as we make our push eventually to Garlemald. But I don't think it'll be anytime soon. At least not for another couple of years. But I could be wrong, so we'll see. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, good Sunday to you. It's Monday this time. Haha, I fooled you. And Poetic and Law bonus. I don't want Poetic bonus. Give me Esoterics. Sorry. Long-time viewer, first-time commenter. I've got a couple of questions. First, in up and coming expansions, are we going to find more signs with cool new outfits? Well, the cool new outfits are from Tataru, so yes. I'm just going to say yes. Spoilers in second with Ultimate Weapon for 2.0 final boss and the oh my god Knights of the round for 3.0. What other big Final Fantasy hitters do you think will be in 4.0 and 5.0? I know Omega will be one or a raid boss, but what are your thoughts? And title of LOL Dragoon is dead to me. Good, good, good. Let's see, we have Knights of the Round, we have Ultima. Omega could theoretically be a boss between 3.0 and 3.5. I have a feeling it will be, because we were told it was going to be important in the main story this time around. It also could just be one of those things, kind of like Zodiac, where we almost, it takes us forever to get to it. The Warrior of Darkness is probably going to be a boss at some point. But for 4.0 and 5.0, Little Alamigo, I guess we have to consider them, and what they worship and what really lines up with them. I need the information in front of me to use it. I mean, they almost summoned a primal, the refugees. They almost summoned one back at like level 26 in the main story. It's always possible we could fight that one, but I think they want to go, like you said, with a big Final Fantasy hitter. Unless by that point they are more concerned with coming up with original ideas. Ooh, there's a lot, you know, because like I'm thinking of deserts with Alamigo, but isn't Alamigo to the east of the woods? I'd have to know more about Alamigo. I think I'd have to know more to give you a real answer to that question. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays. My name isn't Mr. Happy Mondays. This is my first time asking a question, long-time subscriber. So law bonus, esoterics. Anyway, I have a question about healing since Heaven's Word came out. I'm currently a white mage and my friend was a scholar. Shortly before Heaven's Word released, my friend died of a brain aneurysm. I'm sorry to hear that. Leaving the guild without a person to rely on for heals. With current projection of player content with Prey and other shields being necessary for Alexander, I was wondering if you recommend Scholar over White Mage, or should I continue doing White Mage? One of each. Really, you just don't want to overlap healers. As long as you have one of each, I don't know where Astrologian's going to sit when it comes to Alexander Savage. Depends on the changes that they make to it before Savage comes out, which should be tomorrow. They should be doing the Astrologian changes tomorrow. I'd say it doesn't matter. Play whatever you want, man. It's just a matter of you don't want two white mages, you don't want two scholars, you don't want two astrologians. Even if they do Nocturnal and Diurnal versus each other, you just don't want it. You want to try and get some variety for multiple utilities, and the big shields of Scholar with the deployment tactics, trust me, you're going to want those, but that doesn't mean you need to stop playing white mage. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, repost from week 48. Everyone before had the opinion that the cash shop was going to take potential rewards for content, no matter how small, on a pay gate instead of being integrated into the game. However, the cash shop now has barely grown since its start, and the big predicted they're going to put it on the cash shop items like Fenrir and Twintania have escaped being on there for better or worse. So what do you think of the cash shop in its current state, and do you want to keep it the way it is? I'm still never a fan of it. I've embraced it, and I've been using it for giveaways on my stream. I feel like that at this point has become the best use of it for me. People don't feel so bad about getting something off the cash shop as when it's given away to them, and I don't feel so bad doing it because it's an easy way to do giveaways on stream. It's something that's so efficient with the ability to gift it to people. It wasn't good to do before because you could only buy it for your account. But now that you can gift them to people, the rate at which it's growing, I'm fine with, because it makes it an afterthought. It really does. The metallic dyes, the minions are, of course, they are sought after minions for the most part. They are iconic minions. Now that goes back to the question before about the armor. I don't know that I'd ever want that. I think sticking those things on like the gold saucer is a much better idea, even if it's a little bit more difficult to get. They've made the gold saucer and the MGP rewards for those who want to grind them a little bit more reachable now. I mean, I've just been passively doing my mini cacpot. I'm up to like 200k. So if I really wanted to sit down and farm MGP, I could probably get to the million for Fenrir pretty fast, even if it was just through chocobo racing. As long as it just keeps growing at a very small pace, and they just add things occasionally, like as an afterthought. Like they added, what, 2 minions? Like, people like those minions. It was, what, Tataru and, I can't remember the other one off the top of my head. It was Tataru and someone else. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the rate at which it's growing. It's not too much, but it's not being completely forgotten overall. Just as long as it doesn't go nuts. Just as compared to when it just came out, I don't want it to go nuts like that again. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, you read my question a few weeks ago, but I forgot to mention in my post that it was my first time, so give yourself an esoteric bonus. Yes! I like this guy. Anyway, just had a fun thought experiment question for this week. Seeing as the game has 3 tanks, 3 healers, 3 melee DPS, but only 2 casters and 2 ranged physical DPS, it seems that in the next expansion we will get a 3rd caster and a 3rd ranged physical DPS job. In addition, both the current casters are pure DPS and both the ranged physical are support. They are still ranged DPS. They just have we had this discussion earlier in the video. It seems there's a niche for a pure ranged physical job and a support caster job. Since this is a hypothetical question, assuming the new jobs will find these two missing niches, which jobs do you think to fill these roles? Thanks for awesome videos. I'm more interested in a melee caster. Above everything you just said, I am more interested in a melee caster. And I know people are thinking blue mage, red mage. There's a few other ones. Also, of course, some people are more interested in maybe a melee pet job, such as the Beastmaster, or even that being the third ranged physical as a Beastmaster. I've thought of Puppet Master. All these jobs, I'm more interested in them just capturing things that people enjoy. Like, at this point, 3 tanks, 3 healers, 3 melee DPS, 2 casters, 2 ranged physical. As far as I'm concerned, you can look at that as 4 ranged, not necessarily 2 caster, 2 physical. I don't think that automatically means they need to add another physical ranged and another caster. I think it's been a long enough time since we've gotten another caster that it's probably warranted, but it's hard to say because you have to remember, when A Realm Reborn launched, Summoner and Scholar were new jobs. Now, I know that's kind of weird because A Realm Reborn was basically the first real version of Final Fantasy XIV, the first version anyone cared about. So it's hard to really call it a new job unless you played 1.0, which, God rest our souls, those of us who did. I don't know. I want them to experiment. Go crazy. Try to figure out something that's just weird and off the wall. A melee caster. Just see if you can do it. Even if it doesn't mean they have cast times, just magic damage. Physical. No. Melee magic damage dealer. There you go. That's what I want to see. Let's make it happen. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy. I hope you're doing great. I am doing great. Thank you. This is my second time asking you a question, so no bonus. That's fine. Anyway, I have a couple of questions regarding Dark Knight. I've been reading in Reddit a lot lately to understand how I should spend my XP points on Dark Knight, but they only got me more confused. Yeah, that'll happen. What's your opinion on that? Vit all the way, a mix between Vit and Strength? Unless you're doing Savage, Strength is really the only thing that matters. Like, if you're a newer tank and this is your first time learning tank, I'd start off with a mix, 50-50 down the middle. Of course, with how many points you get total, that doesn't really work out, but as you're going up the levels, just do that. If you are someone who has tanked on Warrior, you've tanked on Paladin, I just say go full Strength. Just make sure you understand how you're using your job. Vitality doesn't make you tankier, it just gives you a bigger window of error. Like, you have this much more health before you're in the danger zone. But if you're using your mitigations properly, you have a lot of mitigations. You have your reprisal when you're doing dungeons, or when you're main tanking, I should say. You have your Shadow Skin, you have your Shadow Wall, you have your Dark Dance, you have your Dark Arts Dark Dance, you have your Dark Mind. The Vault is a beautiful dungeon for Dark Knights to use Dark Arts Dark Mind. It's all magic damage. It's all magic damage. That's all it is. I was going to make an example. No, it is all magic damage. And it's a great way to just mitigate damage, give your healers a break. It's more about using those defensive tools properly than it is worrying about whether you go Vit or Strength. If you are an experienced tank, go Strength. When you get more experience in the job, go Strength. When Savage comes out, you'll probably need a minimum gear level to safely have Strength, to go Strength accessories and have Strength points. But eventually you'll probably find the way of all Strength the way to go. And second question, do you think there's an adjustment on the way for Dark Knight? I'm enjoying it, but I feel a little too squishy. So, when running dungeons, if you're feeling squishy, that falls back to the whole defensive cooldown thing. You need to be using things correctly in order to make sure you don't get eaten. Samal can make Dark Knights feel really, really squishy, but that can make any tank feel squishy, because at that point, you're under geared. Like, you're 55, you're no longer over geared for the dungeons like you were all of level 50 for A Realm Reborn. You are now either adequately or under geared for the dungeon. So it means that the use of defensive cooldowns on pulls is much more relevant. You need to learn how to do that, even at only level 55. Otherwise, yes, you are going to feel squishy on most things other than bosses. A lot of bosses just have 1 or 2 tank busters that, they hit hard, but they're not game changers, really. So I'd say work on that, work on getting that defensive cooldown usage in dungeons down correctly. Feel it out, just make sure you're using them. Just don't ignore them. Don't be like, oh, this isn't a boss, I won't use a defensive cooldown. You learn to use them correctly, and also don't leave grit. Don't leave grit unless you are sure the amount of damage you are taking is not a lot, or you have a strong defensive cooldown or pair of defensive cooldowns to back up taking grit off to go into Blood Weapon. Because if you can't get back into grit, that's gonna suck. Like, the first boss in Samal is a good place to drop grit, because the boss doesn't do anything pretty much the whole fight. So, anyway, hopefully that helps you out, and thanks for the question. Next question. Hey, Michael, many time poster, so no bonus. Oh, I know how many times you posted. Do you think that Savage Gear is going to be at item level 200 with the weapon being 205? I'd add another 10. I think it's going to be 210 going up to 215. 2, will the esoterics gear then also be 200? What about an esoterics weapon? I have a feeling esoterics is... Okay, esoterics is either going to be equal to Alexander normal, which I don't think is... I think that's weird. I don't think they'll do that. Unless it can be upgraded to 200. I think that Alexander Savage gear will be the absolute strongest. Like, I don't think there will be anything comparable to it. That is not until several patches down the line where we get new content with that item level of gear. And then I think after we hit this item level, I have a feeling that the next Savage will be 230 to 235. And that they'll use all of that content to fill in the I-180, I-190, I-200, I-210. Just fill in tons of content to close those gear gaps for people who are at 60. I expect it to be weaker. I do expect it to be an esoteric weapon, though. But we'll see. That might be another way of them keeping us down in Alexander Savage, not giving us a weapon above the Hive weapon. It gets said often, but I still do not think nearly enough. I really appreciate all you've done for 14. You doing what you do has made the best experience for me. This is Brune from Twitch. Oh, that wasn't a question. It was just a compliment. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I was like, oh, man, this is going to end in a... Oh, no, it's just a compliment. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Brune. Thank you. All right, so this video is starting to go on pretty long, and there are a lot of questions here. And I've read through them at this point that I want to answer, so I apologize ahead of time. But instead of not answering them, I'm going to give very brief answers now that I've read these questions ahead of time. So let's just get right into it. I'm going to just speed through the remaining questions. I might not even edit it out. Greetings, I've been playing since PS3 beta and watching your videos even longer. This is my first question, so take the bonus if applicable. I'd quickly like to add that I was a big fan of XFB Reborn and miss it, and I was thrilled when you started to say the ROM. Hopefully Mr. Burn the Magic Man can make more guest appearances, but anyway, enough waxing lyrical on the topic at hand. When I started, I was an Arcanist and with plans to be a Scholar, as that seemed to be the closest thing to a Red Mage at the time since they took Conjure away from Bard. While leveling, I quickly fell in love with Conjure, and later White Mage. Have been maining it ever since. I can't imagine a job replacing it since they got the Red Mage right if they add it. My question is, now that Heaven's Word has been out for a while, what is your opinion on where the White Mage stands now? Before launch, you seemed to be of the opinion that it would be the least desirable of the 3 healers, and I wanted to know if your opinion had changed any. Probably never stop being a White Mage unless they break it horribly and it's no longer fun to play, but I always enjoy other people's opinions. Things interest me. I love White Mage right now. That is the short answer. I love White Mage right now. Even with the nerfs to its utilities that used to be unique before, I completely love White Mage. I like all the healers, really. It's just Astrologian needs a little bit of bringing up, in my opinion. Something that they've already acknowledged they're going to do. Stick to your White Mage. It's a good job. I'm a fan of all 3 healers, so whichever one you enjoy, just enjoy it. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, question for week 49. First time law bonus. Any ideas what the new 24-man will be? How will time to the events going on? All we know about the 24-man is that Yoshi has told us what it's going to be, apparently, but he hasn't told us directly. He's given us little subtle hints to say, yeah. It's something I've said before. You guys probably just didn't catch it. Like, it was secret. He didn't outright tell us what it was. All we know is the 24-man is supposed to be unique to Final Fantasy XIV. It's not supposed to be, you know, something that they took from a previous Final Fantasy like the Crystal Tower was. We also know it is absolutely coming in 3.1, and that we will find out more about it at the 2-year anniversary live letter broadcast, which is going to be in August. So hopefully you're looking forward to that as much as I am. August 22nd, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Next question. What's happening, Haps? Just curious to know if you have any idea when the new housing and existing wards might be added. I'd like to buy a house. All housing is full. And with that, how much do you think a small plot would cost? It depends on your server, or at least it did in the past. I don't know if it does still. Not until after they get the EU data centers. I think that's going to be a priority. They'd previously spoken about maybe adding them in 3.1 or 3.2, but I think the European data centers are the more important thing to them right now. After that, expect them maybe to add new housing wards. They may also, and I know you're mean to existing wards, new housing areas to existing wards. They also said they want to rework the way that the wards are now. They want to make it so that it's easier to get to the sub wards or the subplots. There was a brief thing about this in the live letter. I just don't remember exactly what it said. So I'm not expecting it anytime soon. They have some other priorities that they need to get straight, and then we will get the new housing in the existing wards. Until then, just worry about the mercenary system that's coming so you can participate in free company house-esque features. I know you're probably buying a solo house, but still. Small plot, I think, on my server was like 5-6 mil, but I'm on one of the most expensive servers, so it would probably be less depending on your server. Next question. Hey, happy long-time viewer, first-time asker. Get a good-looking esoterics bonus and a good luck... No, yeah, good-looking esoterics bonus and a good luck sprinkle for Alexander Savage loot. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I wanted to ask your opinion if you still think Ishgard being open to the adventurers, if there would be a possibility for an Ishgardian Grand Company, seeing as they'd rejoin the Alliance and the war is still going on with Nidhogg. I would think they would recruit adventurers to help fight. At least that's what it would be lore-wise. What are your thoughts on the Ishgardian Grand Company? I think it's possible now. Now that we've seen the ending of Heavensward, the way things have panned out, I think it is possible. And I think they'll use it as a means of breaking up the Grand Company requirement for PvP. Like, if you're part of the Ishgardian Grand Company, they can't just be like, oh, well, then you're not a part of this war. But you could be like, the Grand Companies have hired you. You could be hired to any one of the Grand Companies while being with Ishgard. Like, oh, I can, you know, if I have a friend with, if we're both Ishgardian, we could choose to fight on the Twin Adder side for this match. That way we can play with friends. Everyone would go Ishgard if that was the case, pretty much. But I don't know. I think it's possible. I think it needs to be, there needs to be a good enough reason to do it, though. Not just for aesthetics, because currently, who gives a crap, right? Like, who gives a crap about Grand Company outside of, like, the hunt gear or, you know, what side you land on in PvP? No one cares. So we have to care if we're going to get an Ishgardian Grand Company. And that's also why we haven't got new ranks yet. So, eventually, I think maybe when the war is over, when we go to save Alamigo, maybe it'll become available. And then eventually Alamigo could become a 5th one. They just have to make sure that these decisions don't negatively impact the game in any way. Kind of like the way PvP did with the whole Grand Company separation thing. Alright, next question. Let's see. Hey, Mr. Happy, first time poster, long time follower, pup bonus. Come on, man, don't tease me like that. So I know you're a huge fan of Pup from 11, and so am I, and it was my man. I'd love you to see make its way into 14. I made a mock-up Pup ability trait list, and I thought you might enjoy it. Sorry it's not a question, but I figured since it was based on your last week's question on Pup, I'd leave it here. I actually made a mock-up too, believe it or not. I haven't ever shown it to anybody, but I did indeed make a mock-up as well. So I'm sure I'll enjoy it. Just for the fun of it, I'll take a look at it after after Mondays with Mr. Happy is done. So we got a couple more. We got like, what, 4 more questions here. All right. Hey, Mr. Happy, you're amazing. Keep up the good work. Thank you. One of the few advantages that PC players have over console users is a parser. Kill speed have to rely on PC players just to know if I'm doing acceptable DPS on either a dummy or a duty. You think Square Enix will add some type of universal DPS meter to the game so players can gauge and improve themselves? It could be where the player has the option of allowing their meter to be seen by other players in duties if they want to or not. Hopefully my question makes sense. No, it makes sense to have the same thing available, so there's fair. First of all, I think the PS3 will never have this option. I think that this is something that will only happen when PS3 support is dropped. That could be as early as 4.0 or as late as 5.0, but it will happen at some point in the future. As for whether or not they will do it, I think they will. They've been talking about adding a way to gauge DPS, gauge personal DPS only, to the game, but the problem is they said they've only considered it in like sort of like a mini training trial where you have like a dummy and you have like AoEs you have to avoid, and the goal is to try and get as high a number as possible and meet the minimum check of what you're supposed to be able to do. I don't know if that's what they're still going to go through with because we don't know what the status is on add-ons, but yeah, I think they'll do it eventually, and that includes console players. I think it will be a feature, not like a separate downloadable thing outside of the game. Let's see, what's the next one? I keep thinking I'm going to take a cut, so I keep, like, going to do my awkward smile at the end of every question. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, got a quick question for you. Why does it seem like every new raid or trial you can't solo queue in, and it makes you required to have a pre-made party? I'd rather sometimes solo queue instead of waiting on Party Finder. Keep up the amazing work, and thank you for your answer. Have a blessed Sunday, Monday. Thank you. It's because they don't trust people to do it together in the Duty Finder. That's really the big thing. They look at that fight and they go, okay, this requires just enough coordination for us to not trust you guys in the Duty Finder at all. At least not without being well over-geared for it. And that's, I think there's a testament to that. There are Party Finder groups made up of full I-180 DPS who cannot meet the DPS checks for Bismarck Extreme. With people who know how they're playing their job, item level 150 weapons are adequate. If they know the pinnacle of their job, okay, maybe not full I-150. I did it once with, I had an I-145 weapon, the Dragoon had an I-142 weapon, the Black Mage had an I-160 weapon, I think the final DPS might have had an I-190 weapon, but we still beat all the DPS checks as opposed to everyone having an I-170 or everyone having an I-180, and we were all doing comparable damage to each other. So it really came down to how well we knew our jobs, minus of course the item level difference that causes, you know, number differences. We had beat every DPS check, it was no problem. So that's probably why. I think Alexander Normal being there and Bismarck Extreme and Ravana not being there is a testament to them openly being like, yeah, Alexander's easy enough for people to do this. We think this is easy enough to do in the Duty Finder. We don't think Bismarck and Ravana are quite there yet. And then also you have Alexander Savage, which won't have it. There's no way you'd ever want to Duty Finder Alexander Savage. I don't even know if Alexander Savage will hit the Duty Finder later. Second Coil never did. The only reason Savage might is because it'll eventually be outgeared. But I mean, even Second Coil Savage never hit the Duty Finder because mechanically they'd think 8 random people can't come together to do this fight without some sort of additional communication and without knowing each other, without having a potential, you know, right job combination, any of that stuff. So that's why. That's the main reason why they don't trust 8 random people to get together and actually beat these fights without hating each other at the end of it and flaming each other constantly. Hopefully that's an adequate answer. Next question. Hello, Mr. Abby, longtime viewer, first-time poster. Esoterics plus 15 Centurio seals. You're a hunt? You're a hunt. Got it. I have 2 questions, one silly, one serious. First one, I've cleared all floors of Alex Normal so many times with Free Company, but with the Duty Finder, you never know what you'll get. However, despite the fact that things don't always go smoothly, do you think Faust needs to be nerfed? You would not believe me how many times I've wiped a Faust in the Duty Finder. Why is Faust so strong? He's not. He's a dude that just powers up over time, and he's got a cleave attack, and he just summons a bunch of adds. That's it. It's just that if you can't get past him, he does have a DPS check. He apparently has an Enrage. That's not good. I think it just comes down to you got some people that don't know how to do good DPS. That's it. I don't think he needs to be nerfed. If you can't get past him, how are you going to beat the boss? Like, that's the way I look at it. That's the whole point of him. If you can't beat me, you can't beat the guy behind me. So I think it's a fair enough check to see if you can even do the first boss with that group. So I don't think they'll change it at all. And question number 2, I decided to roll Astrologian as my main job, and I really like it. However, when it comes to looking for a static for Savage, everyone passes me by. Currently, I'm healing in Diurnal, proud of you. When I'm paired with a White Mage or Scholar, they usually bring 300 plus HPS more than myself. Do you think Astro will be buffed and more wanted sometime soon? Or should I just change to a different main and run Alex Savage? Or quite possibly, as Yoshi P says, just get good. It comes down to your buffs. A lot of your utility and your usefulness does not come down to your HPS. It comes down to your buffs. I'm proud of you for healing in Diurnal Sect 100% of the time. I don't know. I really like it. Like, Alexander Normal is super easy for Astrologian. Like, it's ridiculously easy. I think that the buffs that they're making, I don't know if they'll be enough, but it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing. They're making changes to spread, so you can spread outside of combat. They said they might do that. Shuffle, lower its cooldown. They said they want to buff light speed because it's not that good. Sinistry, by the way, they're not changing it, but that's a really good healing tool. Make sure you're using that whenever applicable. You also have, they want to make changes to Collective Unconsciousness, and I can't remember the other one because they both have such similar names. Collective Unconsciousness and Celestial Opposition, that's the other one, to make them more powerful and more desirable. So expect buffs across the board, and those skills can probably increase your HPS by quite a bit. I think they could also do with some changes, maybe have a card that not only increases, like, the balance increases damage done, right? They could also make the balance increase healing done. I think that would make it a super crazy good card, and make it do both. That would just be, think about how much more useful that card would be in an AoE situation if it increased your healing output by 5% in an AoE. Like, I think that would be good. I think they could also maybe add that to another card, but I think Astrologian, with a little bit of bringing up, they'll be okay. I do think you're going to have a hard time finding a static, though, for a while. You may want to level or use another healer just to get an Alexander Savage static until people are convinced Astrologian's not in such a bad place. And the final question, hey, Mr. Happy, I got an Alexander question for you. Will Savage and Normal have separate lockouts? Sorry, I hit my desk. For example, could I clear floors 1 to 4 on Normal and then do Savage and vice versa? You can do, they are completely different. I explained this in a video last week. I explained all the differences between Normal and Savage. So, Normal has a weekly loot lockout, right? You can clear it as many times as you want until you get the loot that you need. But once you get the loot that you need, you just can't win loot. You can still go in as many times as you want, you just can't get loot. Savage is like Coil, where it has its own lockout. You have to progress. You have to do 1, then you have to do 2, then you have to do 3, then you have to do 4, and you have to do them in that order every week. It's like Coil. Also, it's also like Ravana, because when you kill a floor, when you kill the boss of a floor, you'll also get a token. So you can, I have like 5 of this token, like the Hive Totems. I could just go trade it for a piece of armor or something like that. So it's kind of going to be, it's nothing, it's completely unrelated to Alexander Normal, to answer your question. It's like Coil mixed with Ravana for Alexander Savage. and I can't wait because it's tomorrow. Thank you everyone for asking your questions for this week's Mondays with Mr. Happy. I'm going to go get this rendered and posted on YouTube ASAP for you guys. Thank you again. Be sure to ask your questions for next week's Mondays with Mr. Happy. Got to figure out when I'm going to record that. Might have to do it in 2 or 3 sittings depending on how much time I'm spending in Savage, which is going to be a lot. Anyway, thank you again. I will see you all next week for next Mondays with Mr. Happy, and hopefully you enjoy the Healer Happy videos coming back starting tomorrow. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time. And until then, take care.